Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Okay, guys. This is very interesting to me, fascinating. And I had two videos that I had about a similar subject that I wanted to pick from. I picked this one, but I think this one relies a bit more on me having a more foundation of knowledge about the area. I mean, what's interesting here is you can see, like, I'm assuming these languages came more from the east to the west. I could be wrong. But you can see, like, Harum, Helum, Hurum, and so this must be more related to these people. And then you see Come, Come, Colum, Com, Quom, Quom, and then Como, Calma. So I'd assume, like, these people were more successful over here, and these people somehow made it to... But being an island, as Hungary is, in the sea of land, disconnecting it from a lot of the other Finno-Ugric, I thought it was Uralic, Finno-Ugric languages, is interesting because it's not like they just teleported there. They must have had success in having conquering areas over here, settling over here, up to Hungary. But Hungary was able to hold on to this stuff while the in-between areas lost it. But so I just... There's not enough in this video for me. Like, I don't know enough, so I'm gonna go here. Jurg did a subscribe preemptive, like, where do the Finno-Ugric people come from? I'm going to guess Central Asia. That's my guess.
If you ever look
North Central Asia,
to the map of language,
the Ural Mountains area.
If you ever look to the map of language families, you've probably noticed that almost the entirety of Europe speaks Indo-European. That is with the exception of Finland, Estonia, and Hungary.
Didn't know Estonia was an
Instead, they
exception.
speak languages from the Finno-Ugric branch of the larger Uralic family.
See, this is what I mean. He's telling me rather than just words on the other video. They're both great. The other video was great too. I don't have enough base knowledge. So the Uralic languages, Sami, Samoyed. So that kind of stops their dead end. Finno-Ugric. Okay. So I can use Uralic and Ugric kind of interchangeably. And then Finno-Permic and Ugric. Oh! Oh my god, maybe I can use both of these videos. So at this split, the Ugric and the Finno-Permic seem to be the Ugric being more of, like, you see Harom, and then Helum, Hurum. I'm assuming these are the more Ugric. And then these ones here are the more Finno-Permic. And these kind of spread here, and these kind of spread over here.
Made up of around 30 different languages stretching all the way to North Asia. But who are these Finno-Ugric people and where did they come from? I am from one of these countries and even I was confused many years ago. Back then there was no clear answer and various vague theories competed against each other. In the myths of various Finno-Ugric groups, their ancestry is often traced back to ancient rulers and warriors, like the Finnic Kaleva or Ostis and Oges of the Komis. Meanwhile, their mythical homeland is remembered as a war
of the Khanates?
or Ostis and Oges of the Komis. Meanwhile, their mythical homeland is remembered as a warm mountainous land in the south or east, a stark difference from the forests and plains they now inhabit. Archaeology and genetics have come a long way in the last decade, however, and many things have finally gained light. It turns out the Finno-Ugric family is much younger than once thought, and those ancient legends that were not taken seriously before may not be far from truth.
What did the Huns, the Hunnic people, speak? And the Mongolian people speak? Were they... Could... Oh, wait, wahoo. 0. So this is to BC to today? Or is this 9,000 BC to 0 BC or 0 AD? No, it's got to be today. So 9,000 years. Ugric. Ugric.
First, let's go back in time to 2500 BC, the Bronze Age. Indo-Europeans are expanding in all directions, but we find...
Look at all the freaking lakes in Finland. Sorry.
No, the Bronze Age. Indo-Europeans are expanding in all directions, but we find no trace of Finno-Ugrians in these lands yet. Going further east, we have to make a stop by the Altai Mountains. Here lies the eastern end of the Indo-European expansion, the Afanasyevo culture, the ancestors of Tokharians. They are the first pastoralists of East Asia.
The ancestors of Turks.
The ancestors of Tokharians. They are the first pastoralists of East Asia, grazing sheep, cattle and horses. They are also familiar with bronze, using it for tools like knives and axes. 2200 BC. Major climate change sweeps through Eurasia. In the steppe there is a period of drought. While the pastoralist Indo-Europeans are struggling to feed their herds, a new group of people arrives on the Altai from the east to make use of this opportunity. Where exactly did they come from and why is not yet known. What's important is these people speak Proto-Uralic. They are more primitive compared to the Indo-Europeans. They are hunters and fishers, wielding jade and flint instead of metal. This, however, gives them an advantage. They are not affected by the drought. As they settle down among their new neighbors, they adapt quickly, learning to herd animals, ride horses and use bronze, which they call waske. They take quite an interest in metallurgy, as here they come up with two revolutionary inventions in bronze making. See, previously the bronze used in the steppe was not actually bronze, but copper, hardened by changing the metal's arsenic level. But unlike the steppe, the Altai Mountains have tin, which these people used to make true, high-grade bronze. The second invention is lost wax casting.
How do you reduce, like, how do you make things more pure metal? Do they have different densities when you melt them? And so you just melt them, and then whatever rises to the top, the arsenic or the copper, you scoop out and you put in another place. And then you get rid of the arsenic, and then you melt down that more purified copper again until any remnants of the arsenic and copper also separate, and then you just scoop out the top layer or whatever it is and repeat.
Metal's arsenic level. But unlike the steppe, the Altai Mountains have tin, which these people used to make true, high-grade bronze. The second invention is lost wax casting. In this process, a wax model is first carefully carved, after which a clay mold is built around it. The wax is then melted and the bronze poured in instead. After the bronze has cooled, the mold is removed, leaving the finished item. With this technique, the craftsman has a lot more control over the shape of the cast item, allowing for more details and less polishing. These inventions give birth to an ancient Eurasian bronze trade network referred to as the Seyma-Drubino phenomenon. For a while, scientists doubted its connection to the Finno-Ugric people, but recent genetic studies confirmed the old suspicions of many archaeologists. It was this culture that spread the Finno-Ugric languages and people across Europe and Asia. With this new technology, mass bronze production begins. But while things like tools and sculptures are also made, Finno-Ugrians are not content with being simple craftsmen. Instead, the main focus is put into weapons. Spears with these iconic hooks for pulling enemies off their horses, socketed axes with geometric ornaments.
Good idea.
For pulling enemies off their horses, socketed axes with geometric ornaments, daggers with animal-shaped pommels. Finno-Ugrians were ready to begin their expansion. The strategy was simple: trade with those who have something to offer and conquer those who don't. In the east, their wares reach into China and Korea, being adopted by various cultures. Eventually, they are used by the Kuifang, people of the Devil's Country, to raid the lands of the Shang dynasty.
It's funny how, settling in certain areas and going from nomad lifestyle to more civilization, static, civilization-based agriculture and stuff, how it's superior in almost all ways to the nomadic lifestyle in, some inventions and political evolution of political ways and stuff like that. But there's still a giant advantage to the ones that stuck with the nomadic lifestyle, in that there are some negatives that come here. Like these people can just go and go and go. And so it's just ironic how a more civilized culture can still have giant weaknesses that can be exploited by those who live the lifestyle that they left. Does that make sense?
In the west, following the forest steppe line, Finno-Ugrians come across another Indo-European group, the Indo-Iranians. The drought has forced them to concentrate around rivers in the north and militarize in order to defend their lands, making them a formidable force. They ride horses and war chariots, they build large fortified cities, and they know basic agriculture. In the southern Urals, they are represented by the Sintashta culture, a copper-producing military powerhouse. Finno-Ugrians build good relations with them, and there is active trade between the two cultures. From them, a decent portion of loanwords enter the Finno-Ugric languages. Agricultural and pastoral words such as porchas for pig, gechre for spinning wheel, and peime for milk. Across the Urals and the Volga and Kama rivers lie the Indo-Iranic Abashevo and Fatyanovo cultures. Unlike the Sintashta, these people don't have much to offer in terms of trade. A large-scale war breaks out between the Indo-Iranians and the Finno-Ugric newcomers. The end of the Abashevo culture is characterized by mass graves of people killed by arrows with flint heads, the same ones used by the same Adrubino culture. By the end of the war, Finno-Ugrians come to rule the Volga and Kama rivers, killing or enslaving the previous Indo-European inhabitants. The self-name of the Indo-Iranians at this time is Aryas, Aryan. This word too is borrowed into Proto-Finno-Permic as Orya, meaning slave. We have to make a quick stop to talk about the nature of the same Adrubino phenomenon. The reason it's often not considered a proper culture is because, for one, there are no ceramics associated with it, and for two, we haven't found any of their settlements. The findings are limited to grave sites and weaponry. The reason behind this is that the Finno-Ugrians driving this phenomenon were a small, nomadic group of warriors and merchants. As Finno-Ugrians settled in different regions, they married the local women and adopted their ceramics and ways of life. This is also why Finno-Ugrians have more white Indo-European ancestry the further west you go. Another reason why the phenomenon is hard to trace is because Finno-Ugrians cremated their dead, making archaeological and genetic research difficult. The tradition of cremation lasted a while too. Finns and Estonians started burying their dead only in the 12th century with the coming of Christianity. That's not to say that the dead were forgotten. Memorial altars were built into the ground, decorated with weapons, bone armor, jade discs, and other items.
Again, cremation seems like makes sense for more nomadic people, because graves, I feel like graves are kind of like a symbol of like where you can go back and see where someone was buried. But if you're more nomadic, it's like just a lot of this makes sense that nomadic people would act in these ways.
Their descendants would visit them regularly, honoring their ancestors by feasting and bringing offerings.
Wait, am I just wrong right there?
Decorated with weapons, the dead were forgotten. Memorial altars were built into the ground, decorated with weapons, bone armor, jade discs, and other items. Their descendants would visit them regularly, honoring their ancestors by feasting and bringing offerings.
Well, that just makes what I said completely wrong.
This tradition too continued for a while. The Mari people to this day build altars for their ancient heroes where they conduct prayers and sacrificial...
Wait, what?
Because Finno-Ugrians cremated their dead, making archaeological and genetic research difficult. The tradition of cremation lasted a while too. Finns and Estonians started burying their dead only in the 12th century with the coming of Christianity. That's not to say that the dead were forgotten. Memorial altars...
Oh wait, no, I wasn't wrong. Because these are more of the eastern, less nomadic peoples
were built into the ground, decorated with weapons, bone armor, jade discs, and other items.
Please, guys, any questions I ask, you guys are always awesome with answering them, or just any comments at all. And if I say something that's just wrong, please point that out.
Their descendants would visit them regularly, honoring their ancestors by feasting and bringing offerings. This tradition too continued for a while. The Mari people to this day build altars for their ancient heroes where they conduct prayers and sacrificial feasts. Continuing where we left off, 1500 BC, the Seyma-Durbino era is coming to a close. While most Indo-Iranians have moved south to begin their conquest of Iran and India, some Iranic nomads have stayed in the northern steppe, mixing with Finno-Ugrians as well as Turkic people further east. The Karasuk culture descended from Seyma-Durbino is the result of such a mixture. They continue bronze production with Altai tin, trading it to China and the steppe. At this point, the Shang dynasty too has adopted Seyma-Durbino weapons, and with them tin, bronze and lost wax casting, kickstarting the Chinese Bronze Age. Among the Karasuk are the ancestors of Samoyedic, who has adopted Seyma-Durbino weapons, and with them tin, bronze and lost wax casting, kickstarting the Chinese Bronze Age.
My points that I make that I think are smart keep not being right, because it was the more nomadic people's ways, right there, technology, that entered the more non-nomadic people.
Among the Karasuk are the ancestors of Samoyedic people. Yes, those Samoyedic people. The first branch to split off from the Uralic family, at this time living in the Altai and Sayan mountains where some of their descendants would continue to live until modern times.
Ooh, question, guys. Yeah, question. You know, the Inuit people or Eskimo, like the people in northern Canada and in northern Alaska, the people who live around the tundra and Arctic Circle, especially going for thousands of years in the past where it was colder, right? And so I'm sure the Arctic Ocean stayed frozen for much more time. I wonder how often the northern Siberian, the northern Scandinavian, the northern Canadian, modern day, like the northern reaches of land around the Arctic Circle, if all of those people were much more connected because the sea wasn't as much of a barrier to them because it was often frozen. And they seem to look similar. And so I wonder how much interaction like ancient northern North Americans and ancient northern Asians and ancient northern Europeans, how often they interacted with each other. I'm curious.
Meanwhile, in the West, Finno-Ugrian descendants would continue to live until modern times. Meanwhile, in the West, Finno-Ugrians have split into Ugrians and Finno-Permians, carrying a variety of cultures descended from Seyma-Durbino tradition. Ugrians inhabit the forest steppe east of the Urals. The Mainzi and Hanti people, as well as Hungarians, would later descend from them. West of Seyma-Durbino tradition. Ugrians inhabit the forest steppe east of the Urals. The Mainzi and Hanti people, as well as Hungarians, would later descend from them.
So the Ugric.
From them. West of the Urals, Finno-Permians mainly live around the Volga and Kama rivers. They are the ancestors of Finns, Estonians, Maris, Udmurts, and a multitude of other groups. Within a few centuries, those hunter-fishers from Northeast Asia have become the producers and sellers of some of the highest quality bronze items in the world.
I've never heard of that.
East Asia
that
have become
spear.
The producers and sellers
I've never heard of these hooked spears that are ingenious for as cavalry are going by, and so you don't have to be right in range of the sword and just catch them and yank them off their horse.
Highest quality bronze items in the world, inhabiting a large stretch of land from the Altai Mountains to eastern Finland. Things have calmed down now after such a hectic era, and Finno-Ugrians have adapted to life in their new homeland, learning agriculture and slowly transitioning towards a sedentary lifestyle. Hunting and pastoralism remain as the primary ways of subsistence, however. This is also why Finno-Ugrians have concentrated around the border between forest and steppe. Relations with their new Indo-European neighbors are still tense, and raids and wars continue. Neither side manages to gain an advantage, and the two groups remain at a deadlock for centuries. You might have also noticed that the Carpathian Basin and the Baltic are still inhabited by Indo-Europeans. That all changes when a new, different metal makes its way to the hands of
Iron.
Finno-Ugrians, bringing winds of change once again. Join me next time
Iron.
as we enter the Iron Age and follow the Finno-Ugric people as they begin their second great expansion and start forming into the nations we know today. Thank you for watching and see
Thank
you
you for
soon.
making. That was a great video.
The two groups, the Baltic, are still inhabited by Indo-Europeans.
So the Carpathian Basin is this, which is what this is right here, right? These are the Carpathians. Like, you can even see the outline of, like, the manatee, I call, of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, like, inside of that basin. What is interesting is how did the separation between the Hungarian Ugric speaking people separate so much? So they must have conquered or gone very far and influenced culture so far as here in all of this, and then this held on to that while this stuff was conquered by other people, and that's how you get the separation. Guessing. Fantastic video. He did. I mean, he can speak multiple languages. This is whenever I hear anyone, no matter how accurate the accent is or not, I'm always impressed. It makes me feel stupid. But his accent was very strong, but also easy for me to understand, which is cool. Very interesting. This is something that I've been talking about for like a year or two and questioning. And this answered a lot of it. So, love y'all. Hope you're all doing well. Would appreciate any comments down below. I almost want to just go to his part 2, but I can do that another time. So Jorg, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. Great. Love it. Subscribed, liked. Love you guys. Hope you're all doing well. Would appreciate any comments down below. Calling me out on anything wrong I said, any comments, answering any questions I had. You guys are awesome. And hopefully you guys can join me next time. We'll keep on learning. Like and subscribe. See you guys.